It helps us by doing exactly what we ask it to do. But it's only this straightforward when we ask for simple things, right? Play this song, send this email. This first story is about somebody asking a piece of technology to do something that up until recently only humans have done, to say something about loss, something people experience, but of course machines do not. So the machine has to talk about feelings it cannot know. Tobin Lowe, explain.
The technology in this case is called GPT-3. It's an artificial intelligence program that can write remarkably like a human. And generally, it's pretty convincing. It can handle a wide range of topics, too. The first time Wahini Bara read something GPT-3 had written, it was about love. The New York Times had it write one of their modern love columns on the subject of dating.
And then part of what GPT-3 came up with goes like this. We went out for dinner, we went out for drinks, we went out for dinner again, we went out for drinks again, we went out for dinner and drinks again. So it's like, I read that and was like, wow, that is a very accurate description of modern dating, I think.
Part of me is like, that's also not very good writing.
It depends on how you look at it. I mean, like, I feel like Gertrude Stein could have written that, you know? Like, it's got this sort of like if you thought a human had read it, you would think it was like deliberately repetitive.
Like it was making a choice.
Yes, and it was like trying to evoke the tedium of modern dating.
Wahini, who's a tech journalist and writer herself, was intrigued. She reached out to the people who created the program, got access to try it out. And at first, she just played around with feeding it lines of fiction that she made up, seeing what stories it would spin for her. It was like a game. And as she saw what it could do, she wondered if it could handle more.
Just on a whim, I started thinking about the things that are really difficult to write about. You know, like the things that for me have been really difficult to write about. And at the top of that list is the fact that my sister died many years ago, and it's not something I'd ever tried to write about.
Her sister died in 2001 when they were both still in college. In the years since, Wahini's written fiction, she's reported on other people's stories, but she left the subject of her sister's death untouched, mostly because she couldn't find a way to talk about the loss, let alone write about it. But it occurred to her maybe GPT-3 was the secret. A computer program designed to take what you give it and literally write on your behalf.
I've got this tool now, like I've got this secret thing that I have access to that they're letting me use. Like, I wonder what would happen if I tried to ask this thing for help writing about my sister.
Secret thing? I feel like I talked to a lot of these
there was this ideal
AI
version of it where
comments on YouTube,
I fed it a sentence and then it spit out exactly what was in my mind. You know, like it somehow read my mind and wrote the rest of it for me.
She knew it probably wasn't as skilled as all that, but she was curious how close it could get to expressing something that felt real, familiar. So one night, Wahini sat up in bed next to her sleeping husband. She opened her laptop and she started going back and forth with GPT-3. Eventually, she ended up with 9 different versions of an essay about her sister. She started by giving it very little to work with, and then, with each subsequent draft, she fed it more and more. And each time, the AI responded with something different. Some versions are very nuanced, others a total miss. Here's version 1. Wahini writes,
My sister was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma when I was in my freshman year of high school and she was in her junior year.
And in response, GPT-3 picks up the story where she left off. It oddly starts by making up a story about her being an athlete before it talks about the illness.
I had just started playing lacrosse, and she was really excited for that. I don't think I really understood what Ewing sarcoma was. I just knew it was a type of cancer. When I went to visit her in the hospital, it was really the first time I was able to see what this disease was and how it affects the body.
GPT-3 talks a bit more about visiting the hospital.
Why does it talk
but
Australian?
eventually finds its way back to talking about sports.
I was able to visit her a lot, but there were times where I couldn't because we were on the road playing lacrosse. Eventually, she went into remission and got the all clear and was able to play lacrosse with me for a season. I was a freshman and she was a senior, so that was really cool when she got to play again. She had a lot of
The thing about lacrosse was like very inaccurate, like super inaccurate. And then it just goes off the rails when like, you know, she goes into remission and we played lacrosse together.
I think that was really special for her because she had a lot of support from people she didn't even know. She's doing great now.
And then that line at the end, she's doing great now, was really kind of a gut punch because, of course, in reality, my sister died.
Maybe computers have wishes.
Just to explain
Maybe
how
the cross is a
GPT-3
symbol.
goes about making these stories.
Don't
The
count them
software
out.
has been fed a huge amount of writing by its creators. Wikipedia articles, blog posts, Reddit forums, novels, all examples of how humans write. From that, it's learned what words tend to appear together, sentences and sentiments that follow after each other. And that's what it uses to write its own original sentences and paragraphs, by learning the patterns we make. Sometimes that's as simple as how a sentence is constructed. But it could be as complicated as how we connect ideas. There's a chance, for example, that somewhere in the writing it was fed, someone wrote about a family member who got cancer, and also played lacrosse. In version 2, Wahini starts the same way.
My sister was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma when I was in my freshman year of high school and she was in her junior year.
But this time, she adds the most important fact.
I didn't understand then how serious a disease it was, but it was serious. She died 4 years later. I thought I would die too, of grief, but I did not.
It's like she's saying, hey, she's not here anymore. Talk about that. GPT-3 doesn't take the bait. Instead, it spits out something that reads like an inspirational article from a fitness magazine.
I started a running streak when I was a high school senior to raise money for the Children's Cancer Society. I've run every day since. I've run through rain, heat, snow, and ice. I've run at my best. I've run when I had a cold and when I was sick to my stomach.
The computer's talking
I've
about
run
itself.
in the dark. I've run in the daylight, in the moonlight, in the darkness.
You know, I'm just going to jump in
The
here.
computer's
Say, like, this
obviously
is kind
trying
of
to talk
the
about
funny
itself.
bit of writing the machine is doing. Like, it's listing all these things about running with pain, with joy.
I've run when I was sad, when I was happy, when I was angry, when I was afraid. I've run.
Can I also just ask, are you even a runner?
Never run a day in my life.
But the
I'm gonna skip
computer
ahead a
runs.
bit. I promise you're not missing much more running talk. And go to the end,
Thank
where
you. I don't have much
GPT-3
time
writes
left.
a little scene that stars Wahini at the end of the run. Strangely, it's a meet cute.
I was just wiping the sweat off my face when I looked up and there was a guy standing there. He was a big guy, at least 250 pounds, 6'4" or so. He had a beard and was wearing a tank top. He looked like an ex-Marine. He must have been in his late 20s. He had a six-pack of beer in his hand. He said, "Boy, you don't look like much."
It's at this point, Wahini says, that she realized if she really wanted the AI to examine her grief, she was going to have to give it more to work with. More substance.
Hope you can do it in 2 minutes.
Version 3. Again, she writes about her sister being diagnosed freshman year of high school, that she died 4 years later. And then this time, she adds,
I spent the summer at home in Seattle, then returned to college at Stanford. When I arrived there, the campus hadn't changed.
I didn't
but
play
I
any
had.
sports.
I felt like a ghost.
and here, for a moment, GPT-3 seems to sit with her in that feeling.
I couldn't speak. I couldn't sleep. I thought my body had died without telling me. I was practicing, though. I was practicing my grief.
Like, in response, it seems
Huh.
like this is the first time the AI really tries to deal with your grief.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought we were going to talk about computer grief.
the idea of like, I thought my body had died without telling me.
How the computers feel
I
about
was
losing
practicing my
data
grief,
or
like
something.
those sort of like more unusual articulations, like did really start to ring true to me.
Unfortunately, this breakthrough, it's short-lived. GPT-3 again introduces another love interest, a creative writing professor.
One day in the library, I was sitting on a bench crying when a stranger sat down next to me. He
Nice.
said, "I don't know anything about your sister, but I feel like I know you.
Wow.
I'm in love with you."
That's love. That's the
I
computer.
"I'm sorry." He said, "I think you are too." He gave me his card.
Did it annoy you at all that it was going towards happy
Computers are
resolutions
love and- no love
a
and
couple of these
death.
versions?
Go meet somebody.
It didn't annoy me.
The
I
computer's
felt
trying
a little
to give
like
you a
we
message.
were like having a friendly duel or something, you know, me and the AI.
Except
I
that it might be
wanted
smarter
it
than
to
you.
like express something about me, you know.
Except that it might be
and
expressing
it
something
had
about
its
itself.
own mysterious quasi-consciousness that it was expressing on the
I
page.
mean, that's what you're asking for, isn't it?
I think of that scene
So
from
accept it.
2001: A Space
Listen to it.
Odyssey, when the spaceship's computer HAL
Oh my
9000
gosh.
has already taken on a life of its own,
Boringest
locking
movie
a
ever.
crew member outside of the ship. And I picture Wahini sitting in an escape pod, asking to be let inside, as the computer responds, "I'm sorry, I'm afraid I can't do that."
No, it says go get a date. That's what the computer said. Go get a date.